Hi, Clint here, Crimson Landscape, here to talk about your landscape design. I'm going to start a little bit at the street, a few things down here. The plants, of course, in the front, I didn't mess with those. You want to keep those. I know you want to add a mailbox. I think the challenge is I think, according to your survey, this is 3 feet wide, but I think it's actually only 2 feet wide. Let this in the mason house to take a look. I don't think it's wide enough to put in a permanent mailbox, but I'll have him take a look. You may be stuck with the post based on how wide this gap is. Along the edges here, I just put some Maynite salvias and some salvias autumn sage, which is just a red flower. I like the autumn sages just because they grow in the sun, they grow in the shade, with partial shade, and they do pretty well. If one of them dies, they're super easy to replace. Maynite salvia, same thing, great plant, gets really big blooms, one of my favorites. Left side, okay, so I was trying to find symmetry in your landscape, a little difficult, just for the sheer nature of how some of your windows jut out. And I didn't want the plant to grow up underneath the window and get into the wood structure of the window. So I try to keep some lower plants that still provide pops of color. Okay, so we got Rose Creek Abelias here. A nice white bloom, do well in the sun. Just a green Burford Holly. I did daylilies here because they'll do well in this pop of sun that gets right here. Nice colors. They're going to chase the sun, so it's going to look nice and pretty from the street. Giant Liripes in the back. Evergreen, easy to maintain. Then I did some dwarf roses here because you can get them in a coral flower, and I think give them like a pink flower, and a few other pinkish corally colors. Depends on what flavor they have in stock. This plant only gets about 24 inches tall. So from the street, you'll be able to see the pop of color. The roses pretty much bloom most of the year until it gets really cold. And mine, the bloom is already back on mine. So it's a good plant. And you get sun that comes through here and hits this space, so I thought this made the most sense. This space right here, I wanted something somewhat tall that would chase the sun, so you have nice pretty flowers. These have daylilies. A couple hostas tucked in back here because they're good space fillers, and they do well in the shade. Endless summer hydrangeas under this tree. Repeated the Burford Holly over here, so it's centered. Same thing over here. I did the Burford or dwarf Yopon hollies because this one's something evergreen all year long. Then did giant liripe. Then I left this oak leaf hydrangea in place. This space right here, depending on how we ultimately shape it, it's going to be a combination of these 4 plants, which would be variegated liripe, a wood fern, or a holly fern. If you've ever been in the Pacific Northwest, you see how the wood ferns grow around the trees. They do quite well. So it's pretty hard to not go with a fern in this situation. We can incorporate a second fern in another spot if we make it bigger, or we can just make the ferns add more ferns in the space. Mondo grass and hostas. So evergreen. These will probably die back, or you have to trim off some dead in the winter. This will certainly die back in the winter. You just got to clean it up. In the spring they bloom. Mine started blooming now. I mean, if you kill a hosta, then it's just hard to kill a hosta, I guess is probably the best way to say it. Then the option in the front yard is new grass. As we talked about, with anything we do with grass, is we're going to properly prepare it. We're going to take the grass down enough, then till it up, smooth it out, bring in new sandy loam compost mix, then bring in our sod to make sure it's nice, level, and has a good base, and the irrigation system works correctly. Moving to the back. I went back and forth in this corner over here. I ended up with the Brattle Respirea just because they grow so fast. They'll get around 6-7 feet tall, and they're fast growers. They grow wild, get really pretty flowers in the spring for a couple weeks. It doesn't grow so dense that it's just a sea of plants, or just like a wall plants that has a spike on it. Then I did turf below it. All right, over here, turf again, and just a Texas sage. Back here, I switched it to mulch, or we can do a small pea gravel. It's such a tiny space. I don't know if I'd risk adding a river rock back here. They would risk knocking the gate off the track, and I don't think I'd risk putting any small plants back here as well. I just think it's just mulch is probably the best way to go. If we are going to do a river rock, we probably want to do something small like a native gravel. It's like 1 inch. Left your yuccas, added some salvias again because they go both directions. Probably try to find the violet version on this one. They have one that's kind of a violet leaf. This corner is pretty shady, and it's a hosta. Anandina's here. Then I did Turk's Cap up here. Turk's Cap grows pretty wild, full. I would just add 2 of them. They would get nice and dense. It's a great little plant. It'll get about 4 or 5 feet tall by, probably 4 feet tall by the end of summer. And then just filled in a giant laripe here. I did not remove this tree here and install a new tree. It's got some pretty good cracking in this wall, and there's a risk of taking this tree out. Before you take this tree out and try to do any major planting up here, I would probably repair this wall first just to make sure there's no drama with it. Okay, last thing is I took a look at your deck, and it just, no matter what layout I did, we're back to the same layout with your existing. So unless you just want new concrete for the sake of having new concrete, I don't know that it makes sense to put in a new deck. If you wanted to take it out and put in artificial turf, have maybe partial concrete, then artificial turf, so you have a bigger living space, I could see that. But from a aesthetics perspective, nothing I really did made sense to justify taking out. Then last on the plaster, we're going to recommend a PebbleTech material. We can drop off some samples to you when you're ready to make a decision. Okay, let me stop there. Oh, yeah, lights. We certainly can add lights, so I can always show lights. So you can see the lights in there. It's a good addition if you want for safety and security of your house if you don't already have lights. We can light a few of the trees up as well. Then we can send the lighting back here. So if you want some lights back here in this area, we certainly can do that. Pretty easy to do. All right, let me stop there. If you have any questions, you can just drop us an email with your recommended changes or questions you might have, or we can jump on a Zoom call. If you're a first-time guest just checking us out, you can go to our website at crimsonlandscape.com.